Hi, I'm Perry Atkinson, General Manager here at theDove. Hey, check out our other videos and check out our website at thedove.us. Well, welcome back. What a delight and an honor to have with us today a person that could be on any media source in the world. And he's given us a few moments here today on Focus Today. And what a delight to have with us Peter Schweizer. He is the guy that's made so much news with his book called Clinton Cash, The Untold Story of How and Why Foreign Governments and Businesses Help Make Bill and Hillary Rich. This book is shaking up not only the country, but a campaign. And wow, what a story. Peter, thank you for letting us have a few moments of your time. It's nice to have you in your home where you're relaxed.
It's wonderful. It's great to be on with you, Perry. Thanks so much for having me, and I've been looking forward to this.
This is, how you feeling, by the way? You were down for a little bit there for the count, weren't you?
Yeah, I was. I don't know if it's food poisoning or what it was, but I had just some stomach problems, so I was down for the count for a couple of days, but I'm feeling great. So Thanks for asking.
What prompted you to take this subject on? I mean, this was an incredible investigating story. What led you down this road?
Well, the last 5 years or so in my writing career, I've kind of focused on political corruption and specifically self-enrichment. I've always been kind of puzzled by how people that are, in public service, start out middle class and they end up fabulously wealthy. And so I'd written a book called Throw Them All Out, which looked at insider trading on the stock market by politicians. I'd done a book called Extortion about sort of the extortive practices that they engage in. I became intrigued by the Clinton story because, compared to any other ex-president, really going back to Eisenhower to the present, you have ex-presidents that hit the lecture circuit and write books, which is fine, which is great. But the Clintons, really have done it on steroids. And basically, what I came to the conclusion pretty quickly is that, he's certainly entitled to write his books and give his speeches. We don't wish anything bad on that. But I think a lot of the wealth that they've accumulated, more than $130 million, has more to do with the fact that his wife was a powerful senator and a Secretary of State than him being ex-president. That a lot of the speaking fees, for example, were more influence payments than they were actual speaking fees. And I think that's a huge problem.
Peter, you're writing this book, and all the time, while you're probably in the process of actually publishing it, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton says, "We left the White House broke." How'd that make you feel?
Well, and they did. I mean, there's no question about that. When they left in January of 2001, they didn't have much money. And again, I don't think anybody faults them for, writing books and giving speeches and making some money. The problem is that particularly when she became Secretary of State, the amount of money, who it was coming from, when they were paying it, was hugely troubling. And that's, I think, the most important and compelling part of this story is the effect that it had on her decision making. So yeah, they were dead broke. I don't fault them at all for trying to make some money and live a comfortable life, leave some money for their daughter, etc. But this went way beyond that.
Since the publishing of the book, Hillary has just gone almost stealth. I mean, she's just gone completely quiet. You think you're the reason for that? This book's the reason for that?
I want to believe it has a lot to do with it. I think, there's also, of course, the question of the emails. But, I think this is one of the mistakes that the campaign is making. I'm, of course, not a political campaign veteran by any means. I've never really worked on a campaign. But, I think it's a mistake because, look, she's asking the American people to trust her to be the leader of the free world, to deal with guys like Vladimir Putin, to deal with, the threat of terrorism. And if you can't spend 60 minutes talking to reporters about money that your family's taking in, I don't know. That's not a good sign. So, yes, I do think a lot of it has to do with the fact that she doesn't want to answer these questions. She doesn't want to get dragged into these kinds of questions. But I think that you've got now the New York Times and Washington Post and others reporting on stuff in the book, adding their own reports to it that further confirm there's a problem here. It's just not going to go away as much as they think it's going to. It's just not going to.
Did you expect Bill to run interference for her on this book?
Well, it's funny because when the book first became known to the public, the first person they actually trotted out was Chelsea. Who vouched for the foundation and the wonderful work it was doing, which is fine. Then you had Bill come out with his statement, sort of, twisting certainly what I had said and claiming that, that I said there was no smoking gun there. That's not what I've said, and trying to dismiss it. But, their actions speak differently than their words. While they're dismissing it, their action has been to put together a, 8 to 12 man team to aggressively go after me. They put out a dossier on, myself, making all kinds of exaggerated claims. So they're clearly very concerned and nervous about the book. And I think the easiest way to deal with it is not to let it fester, is just to come out and answer questions. And you're going to have people that will accept what they have to say. You'll have other people that are skeptical. But I think you've just got to come out and respond. I don't think this idea of pretending it's going to go away is going to work.
Now, this book has sparked 5 years tax return review, which is kind of interesting. And then just yesterday, or late yesterday, today, one of the big stories is, oh, by the way, we forgot to report an additional $26.4 million. You got to feel vindicated.
Yeah, no, I do. And I think the most encouraging thing for me, and I've got a fantastic research team that, we all work very hard on this book together. I think the thing we're most excited about is, yes, you're glad that the book's getting attention and that you're selling books and whatnot. But really, I think what you're seeing is major media outlets, the New York Times, Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, who've done a little bit of reporting on this in the past. This has now become the template by which they are, the lens through which they are looking at the Clinton Foundation and the Clinton financial empire. They now realize what this all is about. It's now makes sense to them what it's all about. And this is the way they are framing the news stories. And I think that's very, very important. And that's something that has nothing to do with me. That is the media going out and doing their job and investigating these things. And again, that's not something that's going away. That's going to be here to stay.
Peter, of all the discoveries, and I imagine you're going through the process, your mind must really be racing as you begin to uncover this stuff. But of all the things, what do you think was the greatest violation?
Oh, that's a tough question to answer because I think the real power in the book, if I can speak as the author, is not one or two individual cases. You could say in one or two cases, well, maybe this is just like a bizarre coincidence. I think the real power to the book is you see dozens of examples of this kind of behavior, and you realize, no, this is not a coincidence anymore. It's like a guy that works for a company, and he just is, his timing is just a little bit too good on picking stocks. You don't have proof that he's engaging in insider trading, but he's done, a couple of dozen stock trades, and he always guesses right, and he always maximizes his return. You just look at that and say it's not right. It's a similar case here. So to me, a big turning point in the investigation was when we found the undisclosed donors that the Clintons had promised President Obama, the Senate, the American public, that they were going to disclose all contributors to the Clinton Foundation. And looking at Canadian tax records, we had found a major multi-million-dollar donor that they had not disclosed. That was certainly a major turning point in the investigation.
Wow. I saw the interview, you and George Stephanopoulos.
Yes.
And I saw him drilling you pretty good.
Yep.
And then a couple weeks later, bingo. How do you feel now?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Look, I knew it was going to be a aggressive interview, and I've gotten them from other people. I mean, Chris Wallace at Fox News Sunday, certainly, tough questions. Andrea Mitchell at NBC News, and I get that. That's part of what you do when you do this work. With Stephanopoulos, the thing that was frustrating is that unlike those other instances, I really didn't get much of a chance to answer the questions. We never talked about any of the material in the book. It was all about trying to frame it the way he wanted it to be framed. I kind of was assuming that his relationship to the Clintons was in the past. It was a previous chapter in his life. And then lo and behold, this report comes out from the Washington Free Beacon that's now been confirmed that he was a $75,000 contributor to the Clinton Foundation. And that furthermore, as we've revealed, he has gone to a number of Clinton Foundation events where he's been a speaker, he's been a panelist, he's been a judge. He and Chelsea Clinton were judges for a contest for the Clinton Foundation. So this is a massive conflict of interest. And to me, I'm just stunned by it. I mean, if my researcher had told me a couple of months before, we're going to investigate whether George Stephanopoulos was a Clinton Foundation contributor, no way. I mean, I would have laughed and said he would not be that reckless. So I'm stunned by this. And I think that in terms of the damage that this has done to journalism, I think it's far worse than what Brian Williams did. Brian Williams certainly, needed to be suspended. He was embellishing. He'd go on, Letterman and other shows and embellish the experiences that he had as a journalist. But it was not a question of the actual reporting that he was doing. This goes to the heart of the reporting and the role that George Stephanopoulos plays as a journalist. And he's completely compromised on this. And he knew he was compromised on it going in.
And you say hypocritical.
Yeah, I would say hypocritical, and I would say it goes to the heart of what a journalist does. And here's the thing. My book, obviously, is very critical of the Clinton Foundation itself, among other things, about, speaking fees and whatnot, but about the Clinton Foundation. He knew he was a Clinton Foundation supporter. He knew that 7 times he's gone and done events for the Clinton Foundation. Why he on earth thought that was not relevant to this case, that he didn't have to reveal it, is just shocking to me. He's not that dumb. He's a very bright man. He knew exactly what he was doing.
Well, ABC now is in the corner. It'll be interesting to see what they do with this. That's yet to be seen. Before we take a break, Peter, one of the things, there were 2 things in the book that were very stand out. One was the amount of money that Bill Clinton was receiving for speaking fees while his wife was Secretary of State. Those fees doubled. And then the other one was the whole issue of uranium to Russia. But let's go back to while she was a sitting Secretary of State, all of a sudden the cash was just roaring into the foundation.
Yeah, and I always preface this by saying, look, the Clintons, by their supporters and by their enemies, have been called lots of things over the years. They've never been called naive. They know how the world works. They've been playing the political game for a long time. And so when Hillary Clinton goes from being a senator to being Secretary of State, and people overseas are shoveling large amounts of money to Bill Clinton, he knows exactly what's going on. And so does Hillary. And so to put this into perspective, Bill Clinton's given a lot of lectures over the years. His average speaking fees, a little bit under $200,000. He's gotten 13 speeches for which he's been paid $500,000 or more. So in other words, huge paydays. Of those 13, only 2 occurred while his wife was not Secretary of State. And they were by people who had business sitting on her desk at the State Department who ended up getting favorable action. There's really no other way to explain this. Either the Clintons live in a parallel universe that is governed by massive coincidences at every turn, or something else is going on. And I think most people, are smart enough and sophisticated enough to know that something else is going on. And this is, speaking fees that are really just masquerading as speaking fees. They really are influence payments.
Wow. Let me take a break here, Peter. Really, we value your time greatly. Let me take a quick break. When we come back, here's what I'd like you to do. I'd like for you to tell our viewers and listeners, what is the foundation? How does that work? Because it appears now to be a scam, but what's it supposed to be? All right, okay. We'll be right back with Peter Schweizer and the book Clinton Cash in just a moment. Welcome back, and what a delight and an honor for us today to have with us Peter Schweizer. He has authored the book called Clinton Cash, The Untold Story of How and Why Foreign Governments and Businesses Help Make Bill and Hillary Rich. He's also authored other books, and perhaps you've picked them up. If not, look for them in the bookstore or on Amazon. Extortion, Throw Them Out, Throw Them All Out, Architect of Ruin, just to mention a few. But this book has shaken the country and has shaken a political campaign. And even since he's written the book, more and more about what the book is about continues to be unfolding as we speak. So, Peter, thank you for your work and thank you for your time. Explain to our listeners, what is a foundation supposed to be?
Well, the Clinton Foundation was set up by former President Bill Clinton. Initially, it was related to the Clinton Library, which is in Arkansas, but more recently, it sort of spun off after he left the White House to focus on a number of issues, and those issues were, development in the third world, combating AIDS, HIV, and other issues, and those are all laudable goals. The problem is really how the Clinton Foundation has functioned, not its stated purpose, but the way it actually functions, that raise a lot of questions, frankly, about the finances, where the money goes, how effective it is, and it's all shrouded in mystery in a way that's very, very difficult to access.
They're not limited to being paid from it, but on the other hand, it's how they go about it. I guess that's where all the gray area is, right?
Yeah, part of the gray area is, when you think about charities, you kind of know what they do. So the Salvation Army, they will give you a list of all the hands-on work that they do, helping people that are in need. Or you take a group like Samaritan's Purse. They say, we deal with disaster relief, or we deal with poverty in this area. These are how many people we immunized, or these are the people that we served in this particular way. The Clinton Foundation doesn't serve that way. They don't do any hands-on work with people in the developing world. Now, if you look at the website, you'll see pictures of Bill Clinton with children in Africa or Hillary Clinton with children in Asia. But that's not really what they do. They will facilitate and work with other charities, but they don't actually do the work themselves. Now, the world, Perry, needs its middleman, and I'm not saying that there isn't a role to play there, but the problem is quantifying that. So they will say things like, we facilitated 10,000 eye surgeries. Well, what does that mean? Did you actually do the eye surgeries? No, you didn't. A group like maybe Doctors Without Borders did that. Okay, so what did you do? Well, we provided management consulting to make that happen. Okay, well, what does that mean? It's hard to know. And this is part of the reason why certain charity groups like Charity Navigator, for example, which is online, and they rate charities from 1 star to 5 stars, depending on how effective they are. Charity Navigator won't even evaluate the Clinton Foundation because they said it's got a quote unquote unusual business model. I mean, so in other words, they can't really make sense of what it does and what the money's used for, so they refuse to rate it. And then you have groups like the Better Business Bureau that have dinged them because they don't have internal controls on finances, the management's not really accountable. So it's all this big blur. And in the end, we're basically left with taking their word for it that they're being effective, and it's hard to know.
All right, so it's obviously turned into be some kind of a money machine for them. Does the 5-year tax review, isn't that an indication, a further indication that there's a lot of problems here?
There are a lot of problems here. I mean, this is, we're used to the federal government using creative accounting and, budgeting, and a budget cut really isn't a budget cut. But I mean, it is stunning to me the problems that the Clinton Foundation has had for lack of internal financial controls. You've got revising 5 years of taxes with the IRS. You have the fact that they signed an agreement with President Obama saying they were going to disclose all contributors to the Clinton Foundation. What we now know is that there are more than 1,000 that we know of non-disclosed donations. And then you even have the situation that I mentioned in the book of a gentleman from India named Amar Singh, who they disclosed as a donor of giving between $1 and $5 million. But then when you talk to Amar Singh, he said, oh, that wasn't my money. I haven't given them a penny. So even some of the disclosed donors are not actually real donors. And so, they've got huge problems when it comes to the functioning of this foundation, which they have sort of hailed as this wonderful model that's doing all of these good things, but the books are in absolute chaos, and it's really hard to know where that money's ending up, and they have not been transparent at all in the way that they promised they would be.
Do you think some criminal investigation will come out of this?
I think there should be. I mean, I think if you look at some of the recent cases involving political corruption, cases, by the way, that I'm supportive of because I believe in clean government. You look at Governor McDonnell in Virginia, who is in jail on charges related to payments made to the family, which were legal, but those payments led to favorable action, apparently, from the for the individual who gave those gifts. He went to jail on that charge. You look at Senator Menendez from New Jersey, who's facing prosecution on funds given to him and favorable action apparently given to the person that provided the funds. Out in Oregon, certainly you have the case with Governor Kitzhaber, who resigned on a similar case where I guess his partner, the First Lady of Oregon, had commercial enterprises that were said to benefit from actions he was taking as governor. With the Clintons, the fact pattern is far more detailed, far more extensive. The amount of money we're talking about is hundreds of times, thousands of times larger. So it's not for a lack of evidence. It's really a question of whether there's a prosecutor or whether the FBI has the courage to take this case on, because the Clintons will fight tooth and nail.
Peter, do you know if it's legal for them to funnel money from the foundation to the campaign?
That would be illegal. There's no evidence that I've seen that they've done that. But what they do is put a lot of people who will work on the campaign on the payroll at the foundation. They use it as kind of a stopping ground. What is illegal, and by the way, this is a international anti-bribery standard that Hillary Clinton herself has endorsed. It is illegal to give a politician money, to give a politician's family member money, like speaking fees to Bill Clinton, or to give money to a politician's charity, like the Clinton Foundation, and expect or receive favorable government action in response. That is illegal. That's why Bob McDonnell is in jail in Virginia. That's why Senator Menendez is being charged. And that has gone on with the Clintons. I think the fact pattern is overwhelming. So there is no question in my mind that there is illegal conduct. I'm not an attorney. I would certainly think that prosecutors have to look into this. But if you look at those other cases, there's no question that the precedent is there for prosecution.
Okay, excuse me. You referred to that earlier. You said that likely is the case, that some favor has been given as a result of some deposits.
Yes, and there are numerous examples in the book. I mean, you look at a company like Ericsson. Bill Clinton's wife is Secretary of State. Ericsson's having huge problems with the State Department. 2009, 2010, 2011, they're named in State Department reports. There are State Department cables to the Swedish government saying Ericsson is selling telecom equipment to Iran and other countries. We have a problem with this. We may pass laws. We may take actions that's going to make life difficult for Ericsson. In the midst of all of this, Ericsson decides for the first time ever, they never paid Bill Clinton for a speech before, they decide to pay him $750,000 for a speech. That's the most he'd ever been paid for a single speech before. Bill Clinton gives that speech. 9 days later, the State Department issues a statement under Hillary Clinton saying, we're not going to take any action against Ericsson. We're going to ask Ericsson to police themselves. That, to me, is a dead-on example of it. And there are multiple examples like that in the book.
Peter, how do you feel now? I mean, this thing has exploded. How are you handling it? What do you feel about all this?
Well, look, there's been a lot of pressure on me and on the research team here. I think we've weathered that well. We expected it. We're very encouraged. We're very encouraged because the media is I think gets this. They get that this is a big story, not just the book, but the whole conduct and the way in which the Clintons function, the fact that they've hidden contributors and donors. They get that this is a big story and they are on it. And so the most exciting thing to me, frankly, is that the story's not really me anymore. It's about the flow of funds. It's about favors done. And you've got reporters, dozens of reporters at major news outlets that are pursuing this story. That, to me, is what is most exciting about and most satisfying about where we are right now.
It's interesting because most of the major websites this morning are reporting, oh, by the way, 26.4 million wasn't reported. That's going to implode. You got the Benghazi thing now that's starting to show some real life to it. And I'm not saying this to be political as to what I want or don't want, but it appears this could derail her campaign. This could stop it.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? I mean, the Clintons certainly have a history of just riding through a scandal and controversy. But, look, I think it's a little bit different this time. I think the media really has gotten what's been going on. They, I think themselves, are tired of the high-handed tactics that they have taken against the media. The stories you hear from reporters of what the Clinton apparatus has done to them or tried to do to them is unbelievable. And so I think they are tired of that conduct, and they are moving aggressively to pursue this story. And I think the other factor is, look, Hillary Clinton is not Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton had that ability, long joked about, to sort of look you in the eye, grin, and lie through his teeth. And even if you knew he was lying, you believed him. He's just that charismatic of a guy, and he's that good with his words. That's not Hillary Clinton. This is going to be a much tougher row for her to do. And I think that, in something like this, Bill Clinton would have been out holding press conferences trying to talk his way out of it. The fact that Hillary Clinton's not doing that, I think, signifies the fact that they know she's just not going to handle this well. She's just not good in these kinds of situations. So, yeah, I do think it's going to be a problem going away, and it's going forward, and the problem's not going away.
Peter, I only got about a minute left. What's your view of the Clintons personally now, as a result of all of it, and post your book being published and all the other stuff that's being added to it as a result of your investigation?
Well, my view on politics in general is I'm skeptical of government power because I believe in the fallen nature of man. I think that you give power to anybody, they can be the most noble person, but you give them enough power for long enough and bad things are going to happen. So for me, honestly, the conduct of the Clintons, I think, is abhorrent. I think it demands investigation. But to me, the real story here ultimately is you give anybody power this long, you give a family power this long, and you've got to be very weary because the temptation to cut corners and get rich is just too strong in my mind.
Wow. Well, Peter, thank you. You're in our thoughts and prayers for protection, you and your team. Unbelievable. Are you doing any kind of a follow-up to this?
Well, we're continuing to report on things that we uncover that are coming out. We're doing some research on Jeb Bush right now, following the same methodology. We expect that to have out in September. So, no, we're not going anywhere.
Okay. It's put out by Harper. It's called Clinton Cash. This is the book that's got America on tilt right now. And check it out, Barnes & Noble, Amazon. Thank you, Peter. Hang in there, buddy.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
I look to having you back soon. All right. Again, check it out, Clinton Cash, at the bookstores or online at Amazon, Peter Schweizer. And I tell you, it's an incredible, fascinating read, to say the least. All right, we'll see you next time on Focus Today.